Hello folks, happy Thursday. Got an email from a member. Special props out to Pete Page. We're going to rename the segment Derick's Daily Dose. I thought it had a nice ring to it, so thank you, Pete. Before I get into it, I just wanted to discuss what's going on right now. One of the byproducts, really one of the exciting things for me with all of the bad stuff that's been going on, is that I've been able to spend a little bit more time with my children. I work long hours here, so it's been nice to be at home, spend some more time with them, a little too much time. But I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I feel all of you that have those young children at home or children of any age at home, they can't go to school. You're handling the educational piece for them or trying your best, as is the case with myself. Had my youngest yesterday explained to me the manner in which to draw the letter B was to draw a straight line with 2 boobs. So I thought I'd share that with everyone. The struggle is real. I'm a little bit nervous about what the teachers will think when the kids go back to school, but kid can draw the B. So moving along, sponsors for today. I've also had a suggestion to put some sponsorships up here. So we got Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's does not pay me and or supply me with product, so not sure how they got up here, but they're out here today. Love Tito's. And then TaylorMade. I've been on staff with TaylorMade since 2007 and been a great partner for me and make great product. We'll get into a lot of that tomorrow when we get into the fitting aspect of things, but can't thank TaylorMade enough for being a great partner for myself and for the golf course. So we're going to talk about chipping, pitching, really shots that are probably 50, 60 yards and in today, and really go over what's important. There's no, I've said this in past lessons, there's no right or wrong way to do certain things. It's really all about achieving the right impact position to create the desired golf shot. When you're dealing with these golf shots, you're really talking about distances that are, we have to be exact, which really puts a lot of pressure on making sure that the length of the motion and the speed of the motion is exactly what we need for the shot at hand. So I think the most important thing when we do chipping, pitching, that a lot of people don't necessarily do is we need to control the leading edge. So we're going to get into the fitting aspect of clubs tomorrow, and we'll discuss it more in length in regards to wedges and the bounce of the wedges and the leading edge, and how that really relates to your golf game, specifically to certain individuals. But I think the most important thing when we chip is controlling the leading edge, right? So the leading edge, we'll move a little bit closer, is essentially, this part of the club that goes right from the face into the sole of the golf club. Controlling the leading edge and really making sure that we're using the sole of the club properly. If we do that, we're going to interact with the turf well, and we're going to hit, really crisp shots, which is essentially, in these golf shots, the most important thing. So if you can hit the ball squarely and crisply with a square club face, from there you can start to control your distances with stroke length and some of those other things. So we talk about, controlling the leading edge, and one of the things I see most with people is they don't control the leading edge. So what we'll notice here is that when you use your hands, okay, and if you can see it, I'll back up a little bit. When you use your hands in the chipping motion, you'll see that leading edge moves a lot. So when it starts to go this way, that leading edge really points at the ground. In this scenario, if it was impacted in the turf, it's going to dig. And when it flips in the other direction, you'll notice that the leading edge comes off the ground. And in that scenario, we're going to have a tendency to scull a lot of golf shots. So controlling that leading edge, how it interacts with the turf, is paramount in our chipping and our pitching. So we're going to deal with short shots here. And listen, if you have great hands, you can chip with your hands. If you want to do it in another fashion, there's a bunch of different ways here to skin a cat. But the reality is that we have to control variables. So You know, most people that chip with their hands, the reason they're unsuccessful is they've got a leading edge that's moving quite a bit, but they're also involving, you know, some arm movement, some shoulder movement, and they never recreate that on the way down. So, you know, they'll take the club off the ball in this fashion and involve their hands. And then on the way down, they don't also move this way, they use just their hands, and they'll hit a lot of shots fat, they'll hit a lot of shots thin. So, you know, my suggestion is if you're gonna be handsy and you're gonna let that leading edge move, you have to create a pivot point, meaning, you know, we have to keep the butt end of the golf club in the same position. So this style, this handsy style, is really good for thick rough, short shots. You know, you're just trying to chop it out, get that ball out and get it to start rolling. But you'll see here when I execute this golf shot is I'm really not moving the handle of the golf club. So if you can do that, at least even though the leading edge is moving, it's always the head's gonna ride back at that same point, and we can get down and underneath the golf ball. When we're chipping, hitting shorter shots, I like to get my hands out of it a little bit more. I think the most important thing you can do is retain wrist angle. Okay, so we're gonna work really hard today on retaining wrist angles. Right wrist has a little bit of cup to it, and that left wrist is nice and flat. And when we do that and we can retain our wrist angle, what we notice is the leading edge quiets down quite a bit. And then from there, we can really effectively change ball position to either add loft to the club, take loft off the club, and really change the way that the head itself interacts with the turf. So if I turn around, and we talked about this in our setup, where we want the butt end of the golf club to point is essentially at our belly button, slightly left of the belly button. If I get that ball back in my stance, when I get that club pointed just left of my belly button, we'll notice that the shaft leans forward. Okay, and when that shaft leans forward, what I'm doing is I'm taking that leading edge, I'm turning it down, it's gonna dig into the turf, and really I'm gonna take loft off the golf club. So in this scenario, this will be good for shots that you hit off of thin lies, shots with not a lot of grass, because you want that club to dig and get underneath the golf ball. Shots where you have a lot of, you know, kind of room to run the golf ball. So I will set up with that ball kind of off the back of my stance and really just retain those wrist angles. So left wrist is flat, that right wrist is cupped a little bit, and we just want to retain those angles. If we retain those angles, you're going to be golden. If we take it the opposite way, where we have the ball that's in, you know, sand or you know, we'll get to sand next week, but really thick, rough, wet lies, shots where we don't want the club to dig, we're going to need to get that ball up in our stance. Okay, and what we notice here is that if it's pointed into my belly button, my hand, that left wrist is not as bowed or flat, it's more cupped, and that right wrist gets a little flatter. We've added loft to the golf club, that leading edge comes off the ground, and we're using more of the sole of the golf club. So in this scenario, what we'll see is, you know, still no hands, we're not changing those wrist angles, but really we're interacting with the sole of the golf club. Okay, so a good drill in regards to this, you can take a coin, a quarter, or whatever it is. You know, another shout out, special thanks to Jeff Caldwell. He makes these handmade. We've got a Northern Spy 2020 Derick coin here. But you put the coin down on the ground, and you want to basically, if you dig too much with the golf club, you want to start to use the sole more. Really set up with that leading edge off the ground, that ball more up in our stance, and we want to take a swing. And what we see here is that I impacted the coin here, but the coin popped in the air. It didn't move forward. That tells me that I'm using the sole of the golf club. I'm not using the leading edge. If I want to work more, if I hit a lot of thin shots and I want to work more on getting that club underneath, really getting the leading edge to interact with the turf, what I'll do is I'll set up, we'll take that same motion, and we see in that scenario that that coin moved. That'll tell you that you're using the leading edge to interact with the turf. You're really getting the face involved, which is really good. So next up, we're going to talk about setup for these golf shots. I think what I see most often is people take a very traditional setup, meaning feet are shoulder width apart, and square to their target. And what this does is it allows you to move in both directions. So we talked yesterday about really getting a big turn off the golf ball, trying to create power. And these shots, we're not trying to create power, we're trying to reduce power. So if you get your feet shoulder width apart and you rotate off the golf ball, you have to move back through the golf ball to get to an achievable position. And oftentimes it's too much movement, too much power, and you can't hit the ball short enough. So, and you know that inherently. So people will turn around, they'll move off the golf ball, and then they won't move back through. Club bypasses the body, we lose those wrist angles that we talked about, and you hit bad golf shots. So what I like to do is narrow up the stance, take that back toe and turn it in. What is that gonna do? We take that back toe and we turn it in. It's gonna lock that hip from turning. So really what we're doing is we're not allowing our body to rotate and turn off the ball, really get those power generators involved. So I've got a little bit of an open stance. You see it here, I'm toeing this back foot in, little bit of an open stance. I can't turn off the ball, a little more narrow, not gonna be as much weight shift. We're kind of shutting those things down. And then from there, I can just lock those wrist angles and turn through the ball. So this is, again, really good on, you know, those mid-range chips, pitches, stuff like that. And then when we get to, you know, the 40 or 50 yard shot, the little bit longer shot where we need a little bit more involved, I watched David Toms do a thing, and he talked about really hitting these golf shots with your chest. So again, we want to shut down the legs in these golf shots. And I think of it more in terms of a clock, but we're locking wrist angles, we're not letting the arms and hands really swing the golf club, that way we can control the leading edge. But really from here, I got a similar setup, and we're taking that chest, and we're gonna rotate that chest back, and we're gonna rotate that chest through. If you can hit these golf shots with your chest, you're gonna add a little bit more power, a little bit stronger muscle groups, but you're not gonna, but you're gonna retain the leading edge, the club face, a lot of the variables that are really important in these golf shots. So again, I think when we get into these golf shots, decide what part of your body you want to hit the club with. Hit the ball with. So if you hit it with your hands, shut everything else down and just use your hands. I don't think that's the most effective way to do it. It really will only allow you to hit kind of shorter shots with that, but you'll at least get solid contact because you fixed every other variable. You kept the rest of your body still. On the mid-range shots, we want to lock in those wrists, maybe just use your arms and shoulders a little bit so that we're controlling all of these variables. There's no need to be moving your body. We're not hitting the ball very far. And then really on those longer pitch shots, the 40, 50 yard shots, we need a little bit more movement to get that distance. So we're gonna lock our arms and hands in, and really we're gonna use our chest in that scenario. We talk about setup. Again, make sure that we are prohibiting turn and movement off the golf ball, which is gonna benefit from toeing in that back foot, and really allow us to shorten the move on the way back and allow us then to turn through the golf ball and complete the motion. Anytime we want to take distance off, if we choke down on the golf club, we're going to slow down club head speed. We talked about this yesterday. And anytime we don't allow the body to turn as much on the way back, we're not going to have as much coming through. It's like a top or one of those, cars where you pull it back. If you only pull it back half of the way, it's only going to go half as far. So we really never want to sap movement. We always want to move through the golf ball. Movement is key. Whatever movements you create off the golf ball, you have to create through the golf ball. You have to control the leading edge of the golf club in these golf shots. If you do that, you're going to hit it more crisply, more solidly. You're going to hit better golf shots, and then from there you can gauge your distances accordingly. So thanks for checking in today. Tomorrow we're going to go through the bag. We'll do some club fitting pieces, making sure everyone not only has the right equipment. I know I fit a lot of people actually that are probably watching, But to make sure that your bag, the gaps are controlled properly, to make sure you have the right putter, right hosel setup in your putter, to make sure that your irons and your wedges are fit appropriately, that you're using the right bounce in your wedges, to make sure that your driver is at the right setting. A lot of the new drivers have adjustable settings, making sure that you're using the right equipment and it's set up properly for you, making sure you have the right weight shafts, how that affects golf swings, stuff like that. We'll take the weekend off. Next week we're going to get into putting and reading greens, and we've got some other really cool ideas that we're going to get into. Hope everybody enjoys this piece and has enjoyed past pieces. Thank you for all your support, and have a lovely day.